This is Listening with Franklin Livingston, and our guest is Hannah Carne.
So you decided to come back to the US. Why? I mean, you could have gone to like small town Missouri or somewhere in the South, Florida,
Mm.
warmer places. Why?
Um,
Brooklyn. I meant to say, why Brooklyn?
why Brooklyn? Simple question, perhaps complicated answer. Yeah, I spent many, many years abroad. First in Colombia, then in Mexico City, then just I did a lot of kind of like backpacking, living in the hostels sort of thing for about 6 months. I was in that whole part of Asia that you mentioned. So I went to Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, whatever. The whole
Oh, you went to
time,
Laos too?
yeah, I went to
Was it?
Laos.
Okay. I wasn't, I mean, I read it's not that safe. Don't go there. I didn't go there.
Yeah, it's safe. I think it's safe for foreigners. It's not safe if you break any of their laws. So, if you get caught with vapes, if you get caught smoking weed or buying weed or anything like that, I met people that were brought to Lao prison and kind of intimidated and extorted a bunch of money. So, yeah, it's safe in that you're probably not going to get robbed or mugged on the
That's
street.
the only concern usually I have. I mean,
Mm.
I don't do those things.
Yeah. So,
But my concern whenever I travel is just I could walk on the street. No one really is wanting to take my watch.
right.
You know, anything.
Yeah. From what I know, that wasn't happening much in Laos, at least with foreigners. But yes, this sort of crazy, scary situation I heard happened to a few times where they were extorted a lot of money because they were found kind of doing something or in possession of something illegal. And I think in the country, it's the death penalty if, you know, you get tried for these things. So it's like, okay, death penalty or my life in a Lao prison. I spent years doing that. I think the whole time on this trip, I'm kind of trying to figure out what it is I want to do with my life. And have a lot of ideas while I'm traveling. I think, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get an office job. I'm gonna go to a boot camp and learn how to code, and I'm gonna get a job, and it's gonna be awesome. And I'm not gonna go back to being a waitress. I don't want to do that. And get back. I always knew I was coming back, because this is always, Brooklyn is my home base.
Mm.
It's where my family is. If I've been traveling, I'll come back here, reset, figure out where my next journey in life is going to take me. And I'm thinking about this idea that I've had to, join the corporate life and get a real job and whatever. And then I just think, okay, well, what if I kind of update my resume and I just look at, I think about doing some acting work again. I don't know what clicked from like one day to another, but after many years of kind of not wanting to do it, I just suddenly felt motivated and excited and wanting to do it again. And I just started submitting, and I like got my new headshots edited, and I updated, my resume and my bio, and I'm suddenly getting auditions, which I felt like I hadn't been getting before. And yeah, something just changed, and now that I'm back in New York, I feel like I want to do it again, and I want to try to do it. And if you know I don't make it as an actor, I want to be in the film industry anyway, um, doing ADing or doing some other kind of position. So yeah, maybe the better place to do that would be in Los Angeles if my focus is kind of film right now.
Mm.
I just can't imagine going all the way to the West Coast, all the way away from my family, kind of trying to start from nothing. I I very comfortable in the city that I'm from, and I don't know if I want to make like a complete 180 change. And I think people can find some success in film and TV in New York, maybe not as easily as on the West Coast, but yeah, I'm hoping it works.
Yeah. Oh, it works for you too.
Mm.
But why film and TV?
I was a theater kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, through and through a theater kid. I don't know, when I first worked on my first kind of film sets, commercial sets, um, it was very exciting. It was very different, and it was a different kind of acting. I mean,
Mm.
it's the same thing, right? You're trying to like be truthful under imaginary circumstances.
Right. Yeah.
um, But
No, film, sorry, but these days film is very imaginary
right.
because of the green screen and all
Mm,
other stuff. And yeah, it's real imaginary. It's
I
not
know.
that kind of imaginary like the kind of bar we have even.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the audition I'm sending in tomorrow is, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be a vampire. There's not that much context given, but I'm like eating hearts.
Mm.
So, like, yeah, this is gonna put myself there. But the theater style of acting, I think it's great. I think it's amazing. I think some of the best actors are theater actors. Um, but I just became fascinated with kind of this other world and this more like subtle way of performing things and portraying things. And it's the same craft, but like just a different way of doing it. Um, and yeah, I just think I would have more kind of career success if I focus a bit on that world.
Mm.
Um, because it's hard to make a lot of money just like doing theater. There's a lot more money in film, and that is the reality. And I did one commercial and had a bigger paycheck than I've ever had in my life for a day of work.
Commercials, I mean, yeah, can't compete with commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
that, I used to say I would never be a commercial actor, but once you've done a few commercials and you see the money you can make, it's like, I would never want that to be,
Mm.
what I do, because that's not why I got into acting, to be like, hey, buy this cleaning product. Um, but, it's something that people do and you have to do to kind of support the dream in the meantime. I mean, my sister does a lot of, she's an AD, like I mentioned, and she does a lot of uh, films, feature films, short films, television. But her biggest money makers are always like the 1 day commercial shoots, and suddenly she's made almost enough to like pay her rent
Mm-hmm.
for the entire month.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm back in New York because I've decided after many years of not doing the thing that I'm going to try to do the thing again, and yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting right now because I'm still wide-eyed and positive and optimistic about what might happen.
Right. I mean, I think that's the right attitude, and
Mm-hmm.
it's see, we earlier we talked about this having a balance. Like, so for example, if I do a product, this kind of product,
Mm-hmm.
I never go in with a mindset that I'm going to get any revenue,
Mm.
even with any film or anything, because that's what might stress me out or just like a worry, right? So if you could, and that could is the most challenging, like what happened to your friend, right? If you could raise or generate funds to make a product, I think that's the best way you'll have fun, you'll be at peace.
Mm-hmm.
But if the idea is that, oh, how much money will I get back?
Mm-hmm.
That could really be very stressful.
I think so. I also think it's a business like anything else, and I think my mindset has changed before just the word networking gave me a enormous palpable sense of like dread and anxiety. The thought that I had
Mm.
to kind of like actively try to make these, what seems to me oftentimes to be like false connections, and to kind of sell myself and as some brand or whatever, like it was so upsetting to me. I was like,
Mm.
I don't want to do that. That's not why I've become a performer. Like, that's not why I do this. And now, it's not that I like the idea of it, but I'm just a little bit more open to the fact that if I want to have success, and success also being maybe monetary success, that's what I'm going to need to do. I'm going to need to like meet casting directors and send follow-up emails and cold write to agents and whatever and try to get signed, and I don't like the idea of it. I don't like the business side of it.
But does it work?
I think
If you heard from someone?
I think it does work. I
Okay.
think the people I know from my life who've had the most success are the people who have actively kind of
Follows up?
pursued that. the people who have followed the rules that you were supposed to follow. Like I have friends from middle school who have done a lot of big projects, who have been like big TV regulars. And yeah, they're the people who either them or they had, a kind of theater mom or dad who was behind the scenes pulling the strings and making things happen for them. But those are the people who have really like put in that sort of effort all the time and who don't give up are the people that I see have the most success and who are able to say at some point, you know what? I was able to quit that job and now I do make all my money doing this because I put my years and years and years in.
Mhm.
So I think it will. I think if I keep going and I stay motivated and I stay positive, I could get there. But I'm not disillusioned into thinking that that's going to be like very easy or tomorrow I'm going to book
Mhm.
my big break, my big TV regular and that's it. And I don't have to work, put effort in to find another job a day in my life. I know this is going to be a year or 2 years or years and years and years to get where I want to be. But I think it's all kind of about the attitude and the motivation that you have behind it. And yeah, so right now I'm right there where I need to be. Who knows what might happen in a few months if because the
I was gonna say, sorry, but when you were saying, it, it's not necessary that it'll be a long journey. Sometimes you meet the right person
Mhm,
at the right time,
mhm,
right? And well, sometimes I remember in the Flatiron district, I went to a networking event, and they had uh, drinks and food, finger food, and there were a lot of filmmakers and in their own way very accomplished. And then there was a casting director, and I was just, I don't even know what I was saying. And they want to put me in something interesting. Yeah, I will, and all that. But what my learning from these events was, I don't go to these events anymore. I just go to have fun, like chat with people.
mhm,
That's it. That it's very difficult to get work in terms of a role in, unless it's a role that your job is just to lift up one bulb or something.
mhm,
And depending what budget are we talking about, what kind of project. And this one more like indie type, but not extremely low budget. No,
mhm.
these were not those people. But they're not going to cast me because they just met me. I don't know, but if I was in the same position, because again, there's a lot of risk involved.
Mhm.
Putting down so much money, you want to make sure the person doesn't ruin it. Right? And yeah, when it comes to the commercial like networks and all, they have extra money.
Mhm.
I think that's the connection. If you find somebody, they can, let's say, crime show, the shows you mentioned,
Mhm.
those shows, they have really that kind of resources because there's you have almost every type of resource, a vocal coach, an acting coach, and over there they just need a person to say yes, and the director says yes, and they can transform the talent into whatever they want. 'Cause,
Right.
and I think that's the ideal place to be in. But finding that connection is not easy.
Right. It's that age old dilemma of, oh well, you need credits and you need a reel to get booked or to be considered for kind of serious jobs. It's like, well, how do I get credits and get a reel if I need credits and a reel to be considered for jobs? Like it's this crazy what's the word? Like the two ideas are in conflict. Like I need these things. Yes,
Paradoxical.
that is the word. I need these things to get a job, but I can't get a job without these things.
I mean, there have been, again, I was saying that nothing is impossible. I was, without giving a name, the international guy, there's a movie in LA and somebody approached him and he said, oh, I don't speak the language and I don't have the other things. And they said, no, wait, because again, they have those kind of people. You, for example, if they put you in uh, cop type, a particular kind of crime show, without giving the name, they will send you to an academy to get
Mm-hmm.
trained. Then you say, oh, English is not my first language. Okay, it doesn't matter. Oh, there'll be a speech coach. And yeah, my acting is great. I was, okay, still we have an acting coach, right?
Mhm.
So, and I've heard those stories that people who became a working actor in within multi-million dollar projects who had no headshot and no reel and all.
Mm.
They just had a chance. They met somebody and they were like, "Hey, I want to be in a movie," or they'll say, "Hey, you want to be in a movie?"
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think that that's the kind of networking. If it happens, I would take over these events
Right.
because these events were never really helpful to me. That's why I wanted to know how was your experience with this networking events.
Well, I haven't even been yet.
So yeah, these shows are great, but unless you get a real role, real in a way, like I know some people who appeared in 3 or 4 different shows as a guest appearance, and then their career is done. Because I also hear these shows, they don't invite you back because now
Yeah.
everybody has seen you that
You're the
dog
co-star.
mom or
Yeah.
whatever, so you can't be after a few episodes a barista now, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's very sad. Uh, yeah,
Yeah. Or you were the sad mom whose wife died, and then there's a new crime a few episodes
sad
later.
mom's wife died.
Or
Wait,
well, could be. Wait, no. You know what I mean. You're like the victim.
I know.
You're the mother of the
Sad mom whose
victim.
daughter died.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're the
let me
mother of
work
the
it.
victim. You're sad, and then like they need another co-star. You can't be the the son of the older
Yeah.
the whatever it is. Whatever it is, you know what I'm saying.
Yes, I do know. I know. Yeah, I usually. Yeah, I can read the heart and mind and all.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's an extremely discouraging industry, and that's a sad thing to say, but I remember when I was in, I think as early as high school, I had teachers telling me, if you can see yourself doing literally anything else in the world, that is what you should be doing because this industry is hard. This industry breaks people down, and like you need to be in this 1,000% to to actually continue with this because you will reach a point in your life which is like your breaking point, and then you will probably decide not to continue. So if you want to decide that now, like now is the time to do it. At the time, it sounded very harsh to me that they would say something like this. Um, but then, I kind of grew to experience that in my own way. Um, I spent years trying to do it, not trying to do it fully. I was already from the get go feeling quite discouraged, feeling all the pressure, feeling all the competition, especially coming from the musical theater world, because in the musical theater world you'll go into these open calls. um there's a bunch of girls there that look just like you and who sing higher notes than you, and they all like have prettier dresses and better makeup, and you just go in and you have basically 20 seconds to go in, sing your little cut of a song, and then the piano stops and they say, okay, thank you, and then you leave, and you've just gone and you've sat in that line for like 3 hours, and you've waited for your moment, and in those 3 hours you're just getting nervous and anxious and nervous and anxious because you're thinking, okay, like you're building up this tiny moment that you're about to have and you want it to go well. So the more time you have sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting, the more anxious you get and the more freaked out you get, so that when you do go in there and have your 20 minutes, you kind of like oftentimes you blow it because you've just gotten yourself in such a state, you've gotten yourself so worked up that it doesn't come out the way you want it to, or you don't hit that note you way you wanted to, and you're like, wow, I just wasted so many hours of my day, and I messed that up, and I only had a few seconds to like try to make an impression, and it didn't happen, and yeah, that's another this is another moment where I will not have my big break, whatever. And so there's like that's why I said, back at the beginning of our conversation, I think the most important thing is kind of perseverance and like positivity.
mhm.
My dad always says positive mental attitude. It's like the most important thing when you're working in an industry where you're going to hear no way more times than you'll ever hear yes. You need to be really strong. You need to be really confident. You need to be able to tell yourself too that most of the time when you're not getting picked, it's for things that are outside of your control.
Mhm.
Because they're looking for a specific look, and you kind of looked it, but like not quite, so they're gonna go a different direction. Or they think you're a really good actor, but like your type is maybe not the type they're going for. They're going for somebody a little more edgy who has like a blue streak in their hair. So it's all these little things that are out of your control, but when the only feedback you're getting is no, 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 and you're not getting the why, you kind of
It's
spiral.
difficult to say why. So, for
Yeah.
example, the sides, Kayla's sides,
Mhm.
right? I auditioned a lot of people for Kayla's role,
Mhm.
right? Only you know who Kayla is, by the way. So,
The bartender, everybody knows about Kayla.
yeah, but the bartender from Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, I think
So,
so.
uh, you know, there's one talent that comes to my mind, and specifically, I gave her a note. I don't know how I said it, but her eyes were wandering around, which doesn't work in film.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, most likely, I'm not gonna say I am rejecting you because the eyes are wandering around. The problem with that is then people will think, "Oh God, that's like a problem in me." So whether it's a musical theater, film, and all that, usually you don't get to hear why. And I know it's I would feel the same way. That is there a way I could know what was wrong so I could improve?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how many people want to improve because these days, YouTube and events, like everything is at your disposal. You can learn a lot. Some people have no clue how to project voice on camera. They think I am in this theater.
Yeah, not necessary.
So, yeah, it's so I don't know that why thing doesn't no thing then right away. Lot the way we are human beings these days, right away we think, oh, maybe I'm fat, maybe I don't have teeth bone, maybe I don't have this thing. That's what, without thinking it is a very technical issue,
Yeah, it's
you
like
know.
maybe something that.
And here's the thing, people, and I think I asked you this question, but if somebody really wants to just showcase their singing, why can't they do it on their own? Why do you need a particular platform to show people I can do that?
Mhm.
And I think that adds to some sort of this idea of egoistic mentality and all that. Oh, you know, I was in that show. And why can't Joe Smith from Williamsburg make a series that is as good, as funny as a multi-million-dollar series? Because basically, a multi-million-dollar series becomes a multi-million-dollar. First of all, it has two A-listers who are taking millions. Secondly, what we talked about, the crew earlier, they're just spoiled. They're wasting money and just getting these paychecks. I don't think they should be.
Mhm.
That's why these projects become multi-million-dollar projects. It's not that they have some sort of a secret sauce that our friends in Williamsburg, as an example, don't. I mean, a lot of artists live there. That's why.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Williamsburg, Bushwick.
Yeah.
This
So,
area.
so why can't, like, okay, I want to make a movie. Like, for example, your friend, I think she, at least her step in because of her lack of experience might have gotten her into some issues, but otherwise, having a confidence, I'm going to make a short film.
Mhm.
It was a short film, right?
Yeah.
That's great, right? And I think why can't people do that instead of saying that, oh God, I didn't book anything. I know one particular person I know them from Instagram. At least I know for the past 7 or 8 years, and I think they have only done one significant, which what we call national commercial
Mm.
of a shampoo. And if your age turned from 20 to 30, in or maybe a little 25 to 35 in that decade, you only did one commercial. You could have done some other stuff to show your hair or whatever you wanted to show. But I think we wanted that validation from other people, a particular channel or service or a group or streaming service. Then we think we are someone.
Yeah, and the the irony is to get that validation from that streaming service or whatever, like what you're gonna need is stuff to show. And if you're waiting for that service to hire you in the first place to be able to show the stuff you want to show, you might never get the call. Um, I've also always heard people saying this, that, you know, if you really want to be working and stuff, you have to make your own work. Like, that is actually the only way that you can be in control of how much you're working or how much you're acting or how much you're directing or producing or whatever it is if you are creating your own work to then be a part of. Nobody's going to tell you, oh, sorry, you can't be in this project. Actually, you're not right for it if you're the one that has created it in the first place. Like, you have the right to take on whatever role you want in that. And I think that's great. I mean, I have some friends from college who've kind of taken a big break from auditioning and all that, but they do this comedy podcast, which has now evolved into like a kind of web series. So it is like a podcast that they film now. And so now the comedy is also kind of on camera as well. It's not just like in the audio. And yeah, they showed me a video, a clip from it the other day, and it was so funny. Like, wow, you know, I know you stopped auditioning, but you have this now. And if you wanted to try again, you have this
Mhm.
thing to show. And it's really good. And you're doing kind of your best work in it because you wrote it for you. So you know what you do well. You were in control of writing something that's going to showcase you well, and now you have that. Um,
The other thing is taking help from people who are really close to you and you trust them, they trust you. For example, the person you talked about, uh, with whom you were in a project, right? And I was in a project.
mm-hmm,
I, if I were to analyze that person's artistic journey, they had a lot of opportunity. Even I was the first opportunity. If this person was close enough to ask me that, hey, why don't you get a role written for me?
mm-hmm,
And in this person's head, I don't know why, was uh, I'm gonna go to an audition. I'm gonna go to an audition. And I remember that after COVID or whatever, when this person got an in-person audition, it was a big deal.
And you
But
put a lot of weight on that
yeah,
because.
and then nothing happened, right?
Yeah.
So when before moving out of the state, this person I knew at least for 8 years in the city, and within those 8 years, this person utilizing her own friends and connections. Connection is a bit shallow. Like I think this person was closer than just a connection.
Mm-hmm.
To just make something with people who were around. And a lot of people don't see that. In their mind, the idea is I'm gonna audition for that particular thing, what you were saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they might not get there. And then you and I both know that a lot of times there's also this age thing. So what you were aiming for after 20 years, these shows, these movies, I'm not going to cast you in that role, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to, not as a career, that's the thing. I think it becomes very tricky when you're like, I'm going to make money off of that. That's a percentage is 1%.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just like, I just wanted to do that. For example, Barbie, right? I don't think Margot's Robbie's age was to play Barbie. It's a project she can play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hit. But I think Barbie should have been probably 15 years younger than her.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, yeah, but she did because it's her project. Who cares, right?
Right.
And did it work? Yes, because that's the thing. If you have right people to be on board, like for example, my movies, I don't write my movies because first of all, I don't consider myself a writer.
Mm. It's not
And
one of your titles.
right, I can't say writer, director. And do I mean, I have read so many scripts and analyzed, and I think I am in this very humbling position where the writers who have written if they're in 60s or 70s, highly accomplished, published writers, novelists, their movies have already been made. And if they are writing something for me, I'm just thankful. But once in a while, more than once in a while, I would just give some sort of feedback based on my life experiences, right? It's not that I know that, but again, it has to be reciprocal. Both parties have to listen to each other. Still remember somebody actually wanted me to produce their script, and this person is a professor of English, uh, not in tri-state area, close by,
Okay.
and they shared a story. I said, "Okay, great." So they sent me a draft, and I read 4 pages, and I wrote maybe I don't know the whole page on that. I said, "Look, first of all, in legal profession, when a cop stops, they don't talk like that. Secondly, you have a therapist team. Therapists are supposed to listen. They can't give you advice.
Mm.
So these are things are technically wrong. So I would highly encourage you to consult people from these professionals and all. And the person did not like it. I have a PhD and I teach English. And
That doesn't make you an expert on cops or
I mean,
measures.
so that's the thing where and I mean, I don't have a direct experience working with law enforcement, but you learn because I think as a storyteller, you should always learn the basic understanding the language or principles of all these professions. For example, if you're playing a waitress
Mhm.
and you have no clue how to use that, you know that tap thing you guys have a water thing you do like this in the drink you add. I don't know what you call that. It's a pipe with a it comes with a spray type
Like a
water.
water spout?
Yeah, it looks so cool, right?
I don't
So
You mean like dishwashing?
no. When you make a drink,
Oh yeah,
so you
yeah,
take a
of
bottle
course.
and then you put a bottle,
Yeah.
and then because everyone doesn't feel like hydrated, so they'll say, "Hey, can I have a cup of water too?" So you guys usually have
Yeah,
ice,
yeah, we
with
have the
ice, and
soda
then
thing.
yeah.
Of course, yeah.
So these are basic things like if I'm making a bar, let's say, in the scene, and the bar, somebody's feeling thirsty or whatever, and my go-to is giving them a bottle. It might not be that realistic because
Mhm.
whenever I went to a bar, there's that thing they give them that cups,
Mhm.
and that makes me wonder. Okay, every bar has that, right?
Mhm.
Or usually bar bottles, the real one, they have a
The
metal
spout.
thing,
Yeah. So
right?
that it comes out as like a small stream.
Right.
Mhm.
So these minor details make things look more authentic.
Mhm.
And
You don't just pour straight out
right,
the lip
yeah,
of the
yeah.
bottle into a glass.
It would
Like,
work. I mean, you can still do that. Still, it'll work. People would know. Okay, it's a little different.
Mhm.
Not everybody, but the details, I think, matter. And what's wrong? I'm with just getting an advice from someone who has worked as a bar, or just go and sit in a bar and observe and learn. Oh, that's the way people behave. And will that be the universal truth? No, because most likely a dive bar will be different than, say, a very high-end five-star,
right.
right? Quiet bar in Bangkok, and you've been to Thailand,
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, the same thing like with these friends when you're making something, seeking advice, and if you want to play a particular kind of role, then making sure that is tailored to you. And so it works. The storytelling has a context and things could make work. That's the best thing about filmmaking is we can tailor it that, okay, why this person in this age is doing this, or why this person in this body shape is doing this. You have control over it,
Mhm.
right? Because you can add a context. But when you're working in when you're auditioning for a particular project, which is somebody else's vision, you don't have unless you fit in their template, they're not going to have you.
Right. And sometimes I'll see waitress casting calls, for example, and it's like preferably out somebody who has waitressing experience because they want that when you walk over the table with the tray in your hands that you're not carrying it like this.
Right.
That you're
Yeah.
carrying it
Yeah.
like a waitress would. It's gonna you know, to maybe somebody who's never worked in a restaurant before, they might not notice that it looks kind of weird. But you have any waitress or waiter there in the restaurant, there in the movie theater, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, this looks weird. Why is
Right.
the waiter
Yeah.
carrying the tray like this?"
Yeah.
It's like kind of an immediate, um, it's like immediate proof or an immediate example. Like, okay, maybe this filmmaker is a little more amateur because they didn't think about those details.
Unless you're famous, like when I used to get Hollywood Reporter magazine, so they would always talk about, for example, there's an actor who lives here up on the west side, and he wore a military rank upside down throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think again, what we said earlier, that if you're famous or if you're up there, you can get away with that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're at entry level, then right away people will say, "Oh my God, they don't know how a bar works,"
Right.
you know, and you'll have more criticism than and encouragement or admiration.
Or you have a therapist, but the costume is like they're wearing kind of casual clothes, like a V-neck tee, whatever. It's like, okay, who's doing wardrobe? Why didn't they tell them they need to, dress professional? It's all the little details, I think.
I still remember my first short film, not student film, like independent short,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very excited. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to talk about mental illness and I'm going to have a therapist and I filmed the scene and all that. And there was someone who experienced journalist slash actress. And she said, hey, let me tell you something. And this is like when you show up, hey, I made a film, you got to watch it and all that. And she was like, the therapist and the client would never have a table in between. So my scene was there was a table between both of them, and interestingly, the director didn't know. I mean, she was doing BFA in filmmaking at Pace. She probably didn't have any idea. And the DP, he was in 30s, maybe late 20s, 30, a bit experienced, didn't know. Maybe we had like tons of people in the crew, didn't know. So who wrote it? I forgot. The writer didn't write. I mean, the writer, if the writer knew, their assumption might be that during the filmmaking they would put a table there.
Right.
But no one knew until somebody pointed out. So I now what I do is I always run things by people, different people. Like,
Right.
what do you think? Have you been in that situation?
Have you
And-
been in a therapist's office before? What
Yeah.
does it look
No,
like?
even if you have been, because let's say my early on therapy experiences were like, okay, they have couches, so I thought maybe they don't have office,
Right.
or I don't know. When you go to therapy, you're so stressed out and you're like thinking about tons of
You're not
stuff. You don't think
thinking
about
about
the
it as-
furniture there.
I'm just trying to picture. I feel like I've been in a therapist patient situation where there was a desk, but it was years ago and my memory might be blurry. And now that I'm thinking about it again, yeah, it's like there's a distance, but maybe no desk in between. Maybe that's like not standard practice.
I don't know. First of all, I don't know the bylaws.
Yeah.
But right away when this person said, I thought, oh yeah, in Sherlock Holmes, it begins with the therapist saying, yeah, they don't have a table. So right away you begin connecting the dots. Where have I seen therapists?
Think
in the
about
movie, right?
other movies.
Yeah, and again, movies can't be 100% true, but still, the most scenes, like the things we haven't done personally or been involved in, where do we get an idea from? The media. And it's like when I went to Korea. So before ever my travels, like to Korea, I only been to Malaysia, Singapore, that part. So my idea was that you do like this.
Mhm.
And when I went to Korea, so I kind of like noticed a slight difference that you go a little forward and then I even forgot
Like
that.
with the neck
I
first.
totally, yeah, I was like, oh, okay, from the side profile. So, because then I went to Korea consecutively 3 or 4 years of times, and I was like, I'm a little different here. Right? Or like Japanese bow is a little more than,
Right.
but that's very in particular. But I think in a filmmaking, you should be respectful if
Yeah.
you're playing or you're showing, let's say you're directing a movie or making a short film and there's a Korean character. They should have their distinct identity than just making them all look the same.
Right, you're not just like,
Koreanization.
okay, it's East Asia, they go like
Yeah,
this,
right.
that's done.
Yeah. Or I even forgot. For example, in Malaysia, you don't do that because Malaysia is an Islamic country,
Hmm.
and in Thailand, you do that. Or I think you do like that too. Now I'm forgetting, mixing it up, but
Both, yeah.
because of the Buddhism, right?
Mm.
And then Vietnam. So yeah, I still remember in Japan, I think you don't. I went and found a place to buy a hamburger. See, that's the stupid thing. I would go to these countries and like, oh, yeah, I think the best thing I would eat is hamburger. So I went to a place and ordered that. I explained them. This was before the apps. You know, now I use app to translate.
Mm.
And it was around $10, whatever the kind of currency was. So like, all right, take it. And she wouldn't take the girl. And I don't know how she explained, but later on when I did some research that you don't hand the money, it's disrespectful. So there was a mini tray. She wanted me to put in that. So she took it and then she left some change in the same thing I had to carry. So,
Mm.
and I was more like,
To try to like explain it to you that this is where it
What
goes.
is- yeah. So those nuances. No, I don't know if that's true in every country, but or in Korea because my friend does it. I never asked him. I have to ask him now, actually. So I don't know when he passes someone, or there are times he would turn on or he flashes hazard lights. My gut feeling is it's some sort of saying sorry or thank you, but I think that's particular to Korea.
Hmm.
And this is South Korea, guys.
To do the lights.
Yeah, the hazard lights thing, like, and but I will ask him. I haven't seen that in Bangkok or in Vietnam.
There were a few funny like cultural things that I saw in Colombia. One of them that I realized very quickly is, so in America, you take a cab, then you leave the cab and you close the door, right? You don't think about it. You close it hard, you close it soft, you just close the door. You make sure it closes. Close it too soft, you like it might not close all the way. In Colombia, if you like push the door a little bit too hard, the cab drivers get very upset with you. Like they do not like when you slam the door. You're not really thinking of slamming it, you're just kind of
Right.
closing it forcefully. And yeah, so like you learn it and you try to be respectful, but of course, you know, you just have this custom and then you'll just slam it without realizing and you see the guy get like really, really mad. And you realize you've done it again and it's just
Do they love their cars a lot?
I don't know if it's a car thing. It's just like a weird thing that has just developed there. Like we have annoyances about our certain little things that I'm sure don't annoy people in other places. Like, you know, for example, like music, loud music in public places in America is usually kind of looked down upon. But in Latin America, it's like
Oh, yeah.
all over the place.
It's a party, yeah.
It's a party all the time. And if your neighbor's playing music till like 3 a.m., it's, well, maybe not always, but a lot of times it's fine.
It's common. It's yeah.
And then here, if you do that, it's like you're knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, please stop doing that. I'm trying to sleep."
Because the reason I'm saying that, I know in some cultures, like shutting the car's door harder is considered disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are, for example, in Korea, there are cabs that are extremely decorated from inside. And my friend said they're called Yanka. I hope I'm saying it right. And l- these guys are so in love with the cars that it's so precious to them. So you don't want to like, hit the door, and because hit the door could also be like, or like, all right, I'm done with you. So yeah, these nuances, yeah, there are a lot of things I used to notice how, and it goes back to the same idea when two people are in a relationship and normativity, when there's a norm versus something that's considered something else, like a tag or something. And I met a guy, a Californian white male, that when I met him, he might be in 60s, and he used to uh, work among underprivileged regions of Pakistan
Okay.
near Iran. And I don't know what we talked, and he said, I tell when people ask him in the US, what's the biggest thing you don't like, or that really annoys you? And he said, people don't leave you alone. Because leaving somebody, especially in rural or underprivileged mindset, leaving somebody by themselves is disrespectful.
Mm.
Unless they want to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Even if you go to the bathroom, you guess somebody will stand outside. Okay, right. It's just like you gotta give them company. It's like there was a British journalist. I heard a story he was telling on television that he went to Pakistan from Afghanistan, but his visa expired. He got arrested. And he knew already some sort of lord, regional lord type guys, wealthy feudal type. And when his friend heard that this guy's in prison, he came and he told the authorities to arrest him and put him in the jail because he doesn't want his friend to be alone there, right? Now that's the cultural mindset, which is very difficult to explain. And I know in some cultures, if somebody offers you like water or tea or something, if you just say no, it's rude.
Mm.
So you gotta like sip it. And
You're like, I'm not just chugged a whole bottle of water. I'm
yeah,
not
you
thirsty.
can't say it. Yeah, so that doesn't apply. I'm not thirsty. No, water's supposed to be drunk. So you gotta drink.
Yeah.
Or tea.
You are
You
in
can't
my
say, I'm
home.
so caffeinated, I can't sleep tonight, I can't drink. No. And so those things are very funny sometimes when we see from the outsider perspective. But those things are people's values. That's the belief system, right?